And g'day. Apologies for the loud roar in the background. Kind of wish it was my PC, but my PC's taking it really easy. The actual sound is an aircon unit, but I'm not turning it off to do this video. It's a heat wave outside north of 40 degrees Celsius. So I'll just talk a bit louder. That's all good. Right, so what are we looking at? A bit of a noisy screen. Look, I must admit, I've just brought my mouse cursor down over the application. In this case, it's Dirt Rally, just running a benchmark loop. And by right-clicking on it and going under More, it's got there the option of keeping it below Others. And that way, whenever I click on it, it actually keeps it the active application and has it running flat out. But it allows me to have the performance monitoring tools that might be the system monitor up and running on the screen. So this is Linux. This is a version of Linux that when I was installing it, I could theme it to look like Mac OS or say Win 11, or in my case, more like Win 7 or Win XP, right? So everything about it I found really easy to transition to. I haven't had to type anything in at a command line level or do anything tricky. This particular distro, which is GLF Linux, supports HDR, supports Nvidia, supports AMD, said it supports FSR4, etc. I don't have a modern FSR4 car. I've got an ancient PC here, but I'm finding the performance in a range of games much better than what I would get in Windows, and not necessarily the high frame rate. That might be close to equal, but the low frame rate, right, being smoothed out. Now I do say that with Dirt Rally here not being flat out at all. If I was in Windows, I would leave this running overnight as a stability check to make sure that the machine can run, I don't know, well after a new install or a hardware change. It wouldn't be the only check I would run. It's not the most intensive game. Sometimes something like The Witcher or open world games like Skyrim with the camera panning. Hogwarts Legacy, another open world game, so it pushes generally your memory systems, your CPU and your GPU. Usually can be pretty good. As you might be able to see there though, I've got a whole bunch of games like Bioshock has a built-in benchmark suite. I found Outer Worlds on Windows PC would crash so regularly as I was not able to play it. So I'm going to install that now so I can finally enjoy it. Ghostwire Tokyo, potentially the same. But they're games that would run absolutely flat out just to get them working. And what amazes me is that at no point, just come over to history because it brings up the graphing, right? At no point do the GPU or the CPU get flat out. Not one core, nothing, right? Like, it's having a pretty easy time of it. So admittedly, the frame rate's not absolutely fantastic, although there I saw it drop down lower than I would like it to go. I guess this is a case of I'd like to see the 1% lows or the micro stutter amount. From what I'm seeing, games that typically had micro stutter in Windows have none. That includes really simple platform games. So it amazes me just how much better the gaming experience has been. But did I have any difficulties? No. The crazy thing was, the hardest parts was making a thumb drive in Windows, and that was more because Windows became salient that I was making another bootable operating system on a thumb drive, and it started to do really dodgy things to not let me boot from it. And so the only way I could get my bootable thumb drive to work was when I was rebooting to actually choose the fourth option down, which was Windows Recovery, and then it goes to another screen, and on that screen is boot from thumb drive. And if I went to that, everything worked. But if I tried to boot from thumb drive via my BIOS, or if I tried to boot from thumb drive on the first option, if I was allowing bootable drives to turn up, it wouldn't work. And I actually found that out by trying my bootable thumb drive on an old machine that didn't have the latest Windows updates, and it worked fine. And then I tried other bootable thumb drives, like Windows bootable ones, and they were getting locked out in the latest version of Windows because it thought I was trying, no doubt because it knew I was playing with a Linux distro on a thumb drive. Don't know, I'm a bit of a cynic of these things, but what I do know is that I had to force its hand, and it wasn't that difficult. I just rebooted the machine, chose the fourth option down, which was something like system recovery, and then that went towards what might have been safe mode, but it actually presented another option before it got there, and it allowed me to choose boot from thumb drive. Once I did that, I got a live distro, and it was as simple as creating a username, creating a password, choosing my language, choosing my region, choosing where I wanted to install it, and then choosing which version I wanted to install. And so I had the option of just gaming packages, so things like GOG and Epic and Steam, or a fully featured version which would come with video editors and office suites and everything else. So you got to it was a fully featured thumb drive which came with all the software I needed. So I haven't installed a single extra thing. I did open the Steam installer which came with it, as in it had to update. So it was just standard affair for running Steam, really. And then I just pointed at my other drives, and it allowed me to actually find all my programs, and so I was up and running quite quickly. Now, that being said, I have had to do some updates in Steam for Linux, be it compatibility type software, I guess, when you're running in a Linux world. The biggest hurdles I came across was when I went to run Skyrim. It didn't let me use my keyboard and mouse by default, so it kind of feels like Steam want to say use our version of Linux, and our version of Linux is written for the Steam OS, Steam Deck, and that has a controller built in, so why would you want to use a keyboard and mouse? That would be mad. So really just anti-consumer practices by the big dogs was my biggest difficulties. GLF Linux just wanted to work. I guess there is a feature in Linux that when you remount a drive, you need to type a password in, and I actually found some options under system settings which was quite straightforward. I just went system, and I think there was system settings, and then in that I could go to disks and then device auto mount, and there were some options there I could tick. Now, the only reason I've had to do that is because I run an external, let's click on dirt again, there we go, it's gone fast, because I run external drives. So the typical user probably only has one drive. That's an additional step that nobody might have to do. If I don't re-log into those drives, say before firing up Steam, it won't be able to find where my libraries are, right? So actually I haven't rebooted to check if, now that I've gone re-log in on attachment in here and gone apply, I think that's the fix. When I came back in, I think I typed the password in on one of them and it accessed all the drives, and then I just fired up Steam and I was good to go. But it might be that I need to tinker a bit more. I've just come at this whole project of using Linux, as in how would I do this if I was a newbie, if I don't want to go to a command line interface and I just want everything to work. How straightforward was it? And as I say, I spent more time finding a blank thumb drive, for example one that didn't have system recovery software on it, because that can get in the way of making it a bootable thumb drive. I had a harder time finding a thumb drive than I did finding a Linux distro to use. So for me, I just went to distrowatch.com. That's as it sounds, the word distro, D-I-S-T-R-O, watch, like you wear on your wrist, W-A-T-C-H, distrowatch.com. When I went there, the third distro listed was GLF, that's Golf Lima Foxtrot. It said it had support for Nvidia, AMD, FSR, HDR, all the fruit I could possibly want. I thought, you know what, that sounds pretty good. And then to get that image, I had to torrent it. And so I actually just went to my mobile phone, installed the torrent software, downloaded the image, then I copied the image to my Windows PC and made a bootable thumb drive with it using umetbooten or maybe Rufus. But whichever Linux distro you're going to go with, if you go to a how-to guide on the net of what software to make a bootable thumb drive, they'll probably give you recommendations and which buttons to click to make it all happen. Because literally that would have been the hardest steps. Finding an image, finding a Linux to use, easy. Making a bootable thumb drive, a little bit difficult, but mostly because Windows didn't want to boot to it. So once I got that sorted, I was up and away. As I said, I just had to come up with a name and a password, choose which packages I wanted to install, and sort of pointed at my disk. Okay, I did have to choose a language, I did have to choose a region. It was probably 6 steps. Didn't take very long, and because it was a live distro and I was on the internet, I could actually browse the net and do other things while I was there. that was how I actually read about the distro I was using. I spent less time researching it perhaps than I should have. I was installing it before I actually found out much about it at all. But GLF is about maximum performance. It's using the NIX as the backend. NIX Linux is a hyper-performant operating system, but it's a little bit complex for new users. And so GLF is the visual-friendly version of it. Oh, that was the 7th step, choosing whether I wanted it to look like Windows or Mac. Right? It was that simple. It really was just about 6 or 7 clicks to get up and running, given that I was willing to wipe my Windows drive, which was a pretty easy decision to make, given the updates keep breaking Windows and it's a pain in the ass and it has no performance. So now I feel like I've got ultimate performance. Everything's working, it's working reliably. It's just like, for example, when I fired Skyrim up, I didn't have any headphones plugged in. I had a nearby media player, so I plugged a USB cable into that and my headphones were putting out sound straight away. I didn't even have to, in Linux, go down and select it. But if you've got Bluetooth in your computer, under your Bluetooth options, you can actually choose what codec you want to support to your Bluetooth headphones. You choose for an LDAC, you choose aptX High Def or AAC, SBC, you name it, they're all there. I thought that was pretty nifty. And with your power plan, you can just roll your mouse wheel up and down on that to choose between performance, balanced or low power profile. And little things like that I find are pretty easy. If I go over the graphics one, I can actually just change the brightness of my monitor really easy just by rolling my mouse wheel up and down like I'm doing now. So given I've got an HDR monitor, if I just want to leave testing running, I can just move over that, roll my mouse wheel down. I know I'm not hurting anything, but everything about it has just been super easy. Look, here's the old peek at desktop. If I do that and just go right click and go display configuration, just like traditional Windows, it gives you the option in here. I found after I enabled HDR, I could even calibrate the HDR. And none of this needed to be on the internet. I didn't need to download any extra software. The software it came with, every single one of these menu options was just filled with software. So at the end of the day, Linux for the win. In this case, this is GLF Linux. It was so easy to set up and get running. There you go. As you see, when I clicked on the game again, because I've got it set run below others, it was just an easy case of right clicking on it, going into the extra menus that appear under more here. See here, I've got keep below others. I could actually say keep above others. That would make it go full screen essentially. Well, there's a full screen option right there if I want it to take ownership. I use the Alt Enter option on my keyboard generally to get things up and running. But to say that I'm just sipping power, I'm using a lot less power than a PlayStation right now, and I'm getting levels of performance that I basically wouldn't get in console gaming. And for example, hooking up my Switch controller when I was playing Skyrim, all I had to do is I just went to Bluetooth, just went pair object, held down the little button at the top of the controller, and then I was playing Skyrim with any Bluetooth controller that I want to use. So Linux has really been the join all the gaps together, allowing me to use any DAC I want, any audio source. I can use any controller, I can use any race wheel. You know, I don't have to pay for just licensed peripherals for the platform I'm on, and it has been a real joy to use. So I'm going to absolutely recommend GLF Linux, or GLF, as a distro. It's been an ultimate gaming performance build. I did put it on my Legion Go before I put it on my desktop. It showed me it was pretty good. Because it wasn't built for the handhelds, might be a classic case of your mileage may vary, but I found I was getting great performance out of it, and it made me want to go to a desktop version. Alright, well, I'm hoping there's something useful in this video for you. I certainly would recommend it. You can only see why there's a whole flood of videos on the internet, much like this one, talking about making the jump. It's so easy to do. It took very little time, and whatever time it did take, it was just because the software I was using, GLF, is auto-updating, and it was grabbing all the latest software packages for what is lots and lots and lots of software that comes with it. But it's all no cost, so if you do like the Linux distro of your choice, do throw them a couple of dollars. Support these communities that are making some really wonderful software for us to use. It does make for a much more performant gaming platform, definitely, but I would actually trust it for productivity way more than I would trust any Windows machine. So that's a little bit scary, that I can come in as a completely unfamiliar user and be able to get maximum productivity done on a platform I've never used before. Anyway, I think it's wonderful. That's why I made this video. You have a great day.